was a successful one as they took 2 of 3 from the A's, currently 10-5 in the National League East and sitting atop the division. As we welcome you to the Queen's Connection, episode number 67. I am your host, Andrew Patton, joined by the co-host, Corne Hogavine. Corne, it wasn't pretty at times for the Mets offense in this series, but you know what? The end result is 2 of 3, and you cannot complain too much about that.
We are 10-5. We are on top of the National League East in a good division, as we always say, with a couple of good teams. Without really feeling that everything is clicking right now. To me, that's pretty darn amazing that you are 5 games over 10-5, 667 winning percentage. I mean, all good things, I would say.
Yeah, if you're complaining about that, then I guess you just like to complain. But obviously, a topic that has come up throughout the first 15 games of this season is sometimes the Mets not having the ability to drive runners in. I'm sure we'll discuss that in this episode because it did pop up at times during this series with the A's. But you look at this series overall, I don't think we knew what to expect with this trip to Sacramento. Like I said, it's the first time the Mets have ever been to Sacramento. We kind of had some ideas of how the ballpark might play, but never really got to lay eyes on it until this weekend. So, just kind of looking at these last 3 games against the A's, what stood out to you the most?
Well, honestly, it's the offense. I think the offense, um, besides what you just mentioned about running runners in scoring position numbers, I thought the Mets really took a lot of great at bats. I think the boot yesterday in all those 3 games mentioned it that they took long at bats, fouled off some pretty tough pitches, and also I think you have to give credit because that Saturday game. Our old friend in the minor leagues, JT Ginn, made the pitches when he needed to. The Mets gave him tough at bats, and it seems like every time he threw a nice slider or that sinker was moving well under the right-handed bats. But it's mostly after pretty long at bats, so they made him work. They got their opportunities in that Saturday loss because running up the pitch count, not chasing that much. And I think the Mets are really taking a great approach. And I mean, you alluded to that we're probably going to talk about this later, so we'll keep this fairly short. But um, to me, it starts with a good approach and then the results will come. And we saw that a little bit in the later innings on Sunday. But overall, I was pretty pleased with the hitters' approach we saw.
Yeah, and it's something we've talked about on previous episodes. A lot of guys haven't hit their full potential yet this season, and look at where the Mets are currently in the National League East, 10-5, like we talked about at the top. And um, once those guys do get going, and maybe someone like Brandon Nimmo, who had a very good series against the A's, maybe this is the spark he needed to get going. Um, it's just going to make that lineup a whole lot better. Um, and I like what you talked about when it came to the approach at the plate. And I totally agree. I mean, just look at uh, yesterday's games, the Sunday game against the A's. I think we all knew Severino was going to be a little fired up for this outing, and it showed with his velocity. I think they even mentioned it on the broadcast, like he was averaging like 95 miles per hour on his, a fastball sinker, and he was kind of sitting more 97, 98, so he had that little extra juice. But sometimes that can go against you, and it did because the Mets put together, particularly in that first inning, some really good long at bats. Severino sometimes wasn't very close to the zone, so it racked up his pitch count. So the Mets, did put some very good at bats together, not just against Severino, but like you said, JT Ginn as well, and on the Friday game against JP Sears. Um, let's talk about the ballpark there in Sacramento because I think that's no, it's a topic because it's a minor league ballpark. Actually, I I was kind of pleasantly surprised with how things turned out because it seemed like it was just going to be. I mean, it's hard to say it's this is like Coors Field or whatever, but with some of the numbers that are getting put up there, it seemed like a lot of games were going to be like kind of how Friday played out, 7-6 or 10-8, something like that. But um, I didn't think it necessarily played that way in this series. Now it is April, and they were talking about during the summer it could be a whole different story. Um, but for the but for a quote unquote minor league ballpark, hosting a major league team, um, the facility, at least on the broadcast, it looked very nice and well kept. Now, when it comes to June, July, and there's all the minor league games that go on too, it might be a different story. But I mean, for right now, anyway, like I was kind of pleasantly surprised with how that ballpark in Sacramento, how it played and how the facility actually looked.
Yeah, same here. I thought it was a beautiful ballpark, and actually, I think the atmosphere that was around the ballpark was pretty nice. I think it helped that you have a smaller ballpark with lesser people. I think that's kind of a nice feeling. I also think we saw that with the Rays. If you see some clips of the Tampa Bay Rays who are in a minor league ballpark, a team that doesn't really get crowds, and all of a sudden it looks packed. So I thought it was a nice atmosphere, a nice ballpark. Obviously, you saw some little issues with running to the batter's box or the hitting cage between innings. I mean that are things that Major League Baseball players aren't used to. It. We saw Kodai Senga lying on the ground in the dugout yesterday to get some stretching going, which he probably would have done in the clubhouse in a normal ballpark. But overall, I thought it was an okay experience. Was an okay experience to watch, and I think for fans it was a very nice experience because you are somewhat closer to the ball game. So um, overall, better than I expected.
Yeah, yesterday's game, I'm looking at the attendance, just a touch over 10,000 people at that ball game, and you figure, where the A's were in Oakland, I mean, like that's a lot better than what they were drawing at the Coliseum. I mean, there were sometimes last year it was like they had 3,200 people there. It was, not a great atmosphere. And the point I watched yesterday's game with my dad, and my dad was saying, you'd rather have that smaller crowd in a ballpark like that rather than a place like the Coliseum because, like you talked about with the atmosphere, it's more compact. You're more on top of it and everything, so it feeds a little bit more into the players. So overall, I'd say thumbs up for those 3 games in Sacramento. And like we said, it's going to be a couple more years of this until the A's end up in Vegas, which is what they're hoping for anyway. Now, I guess that's still up in the air, but um, no, tip of the cap to the A's and Major League Baseball for getting that ballpark to major league quality as they can. Like obviously, there are some things like you talked about, like the clubhouse and beyond the the left center field wall and the batting cages out there. There's some things that you just have to kind of work around, but overall, pretty good job, I'd say, by the A's in Major League Baseball. Um, Also, pretty good job overall, I think, from the Mets pitching this weekend. Maybe Friday with Griffin Canning was a little up and down at times. I think kind of later towards the game, that's when he kind of started to falter. Um, but I thought David Peterson pitched pretty well on Saturday. I know you can elaborate on that. You had a point to make, but I still think um, even if he didn't have his best stuff, to give him 6 innings of 2-run ball, pretty good. And obviously, Kodai Senga, the question mark is kind of starting to maybe get erased a little bit. Now, it is only 3 starts and whatnot against maybe not some of the best uh, Major League Baseball has to offer, but um, Kodai in his 3 outings this year has looked really, really good now. Um, and it's going to be an interesting point now in the season because the Mets don't have an off day for a little bit. So, and they obviously want to give him as much rest as possible. And I would argue the same thing with Clay Holmes, who's making the transition from the bullpen to the rotation. So the Mets pitching, I think overall this past weekend was very good, and Kodai was probably the headliner.
Yeah, definitely. Senga was on. To me, the most beautiful thing to watch yesterday is that Senga had control of all of his pitches. He didn't get a lot of strikeouts, so he got a little bit of help by the Oakland. Sorry, excuse me, the A's. It's the first time that, hopefully, the last time I made that mistake. But the A's lineup, they were pretty aggressive on him. Low pitch count, got a lot of quick outs. But you have to be in the zone to do that. And so Kodai was in the zone. Sometimes he loses the zone a little bit. I didn't think we saw that yesterday. Got some nice double plays behind him, especially that Beatty play was sweet. So he got the ground ball when he needed to. Um, Overall, if it was a very good commanding the zone, mixing his pitches well type of outing. Maybe not the sexiest outing in terms of whiffs, but it was a bit like an outing we love to see. Being smart, mixing up his pitches, and being in the zone with all of his pitches, getting quick outs, getting 7 innings out of Kodai Senga on 77 pitches showed how in complete control he was for the whole game.
Yeah, like you talked about, not a high strikeout count in this game, just the four, but only two walks, four hits allowed, and like you said, the upper 70s the pitch count. You got him through 7 innings. I mean, we talked about how kind of careful they're being with him. Um, I mean, I thought there was maybe a chance. Like, you're not sure about like what the pitch count is. Is it because I believe it's been 75 ish these last couple or the first two. So you wondered maybe if it would get bumped up a little bit to like 85 or something like that. But obviously, the Mets were very happy with what they saw from Senga, and they said that's good enough. With especially with the bullpen that they have right now, it's you feel pretty comfortable handing the game over to them. And obviously on Sunday with Minter and Max Kranick, they did their jobs very well, and the A's didn't really get anything going. And you talked about getting some help from the defense, and we kind of talked about this a little bit in our chat. What the Mets put out there yesterday in the infield is arguably the best defensive infield they can run out there with Alonso at first, Acuna at second, Lindor at short, of course, and Brett Beatty playing third base. And Brett made some really great plays to start those two double plays. Vientos was the DH yesterday. Um, so I guess my question to you is, um, it's we're early in the season. You always have to put that disclaimer right now. But is what the Mets put out there yesterday lineup wise, is that something you would like to see more often? Because obviously they have Marte and Winker DHing. That's why they're here or why they're still here for Marte's case. But obviously Marte's had a couple hits, big hits this season, but overall has kind of been, you know,
Gets on base though.
yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't say that Marte has been. Meh. I think he is. It's what you expect out of starting Marte. Honestly, it's all right. I think Man's a little bit too down on Marte. I know you're a bit like you're not the biggest Marte fan in this stage of his career. I should add,
Which is I think is
but
fair, but you know.
I think it's fair. But I think right now he's been all right. I think Jesse Winker has been, besides a couple of big hits, more meh, honestly, if you look at the numbers than
It's a little,
starting
it's a little
Marte.
underwhelming.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So, yeah,
So
go ahead.
is this lineup that the Mets put out there yesterday with Vientos DHing and Beatty at third, Acuna at second? Is that something you would like to see the Mets do more often, or do you think it's you still gotta at least keep running Marte and Winker out there when you can and see if they get going, and then if they don't, then maybe you have to change your mindset. And I guess think as I talking, I was saying that the thought crept into my mind. Jeff McNeil is going to be back pretty soon, it seems like. So that's also going to factor your roster construction. So maybe, some guys that we're talking about here, they might be playing in Syracuse by the weekend, maybe a little after that. So I guess, for the time being, would you like to see the Mets kind of put this out there um, more often than not?
I think it's not a good idea to have two DHs on your bench. I think it makes your bench a lot less versatile. So if you have Marte and Winker as your platoon DH, which what kind of we have, I think they should DH when they are available. I think that yesterday it was more Winker probably not feeling his best, and Marte having back-to-back games, which for Starling, maybe it's not the best idea with his age, with his health. So I think that was more of the reason why they did this than um, wanting the best defensive infield. Although I do believe that yes, this is the best defensive infield the Mets can put out there. So I think moving forward, we're probably going to see the DH with Marte and Winker. But on the other hand, it's good to know that you have that opportunity. Um, but yeah, Winker is too good of a bat, especially against right-handed pitching. At some point, we are 15 games in. So at some point, we should expect that he starts the hit a little bit better, and then he's going to be a big part of our lineup. I mean, the lineup. If we all talk about the bottom of the middle and bottom of the lineup, the top three of the Mets hitters have been hitting pretty well, and it's 4 through 9. It's not being great, and Winker is part of that. And I think Winker is one of those guys who we have that should do a better job and should be able to do a better job. So we need those guys in to be a productive lineup. So I would probably see that return if they are all available.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question to ask because obviously we know the Mets lineup, like you just said, basically 4 through 9 has not been as productive as we'd like them to be. But obviously, part of the game too is run prevention, and we saw how good the Mets infield was yesterday defensively, making some really good plays. So I think it's just an interesting question in my mind because you have a lot of sinker ballers, or like a Clay Holmes, a David Peterson, McGill. We can put McGill in that category now as well. He's a sinker baller, and obviously, as we saw with JT Ginn for the A's side, the goal with the sinker is to produce a lot of ground balls, and if you're going to hit a lot of ground balls, you want good fielders to make those plays, like Brett Beatty made yesterday. So maybe it's more of a circumstantial thing rather than running it consistently out there. But um, I was I was very happy with what I saw from the Mets infield yesterday.
Yeah, obviously, me too. Like I said, I think this is the best defense the Mets in the infield can get out of. It can put out there, but I don't think the Mets are gonna do that. Especially also, I don't think they want to Vientos be a more DH. I think they definitely want him to be the third baseman too. So maybe we'll see. I wouldn't be that against seeing this when the circumstances right. Maybe when Clay Holmes will pitch tonight is in there. He was an extreme ground ball pitcher. Um, you could do that, maybe a little bit more, but right now, with McNeil also coming back, I don't see that will be necessarily the case.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, but I think like I said, it's just an interesting thing to chew on. Playing the because we got to do a show today, and obviously what happened yesterday is what we could talk about. So just trying to find
I have a
interest.
lot of minor league stuff, Andrew, so
Yeah.
don't worry about the time.
Oh, okay, perfect, awesome. But I want to talk about Peterson because I think it was in my mind it was a good outing. Obviously the 2 runs in 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, no walks, which is obviously very good for David Peterson after his last outing where he had a little bit of walk issues and had to come out of the game, wasn't feeling too hot. You said in our chat, maybe not his best stuff, particularly the changeup. So what did you see from Peterson in his last outing against the A's that had you not concerned? Obviously, I'm not saying that, but
Um,
you sat there and you said he doesn't have his A game today, but he gutted that one out.
Yeah, that's what Peterson did last year. I mean, it shows that he's a good pitcher. So for first and foremost, definitely not concerned about David Peterson, but um, if you get 6 innings, 2 runs, even I think the 2 runs that he allowed was also a little bit of lucky, especially with that leadoff double that was bounced past the right field line to open that inning where they scored 2 runs. So two more ground ball hits there. So that's what Peterson wants to get ground balls. They were hit hard, but they were on the ground. So little bit of misfortune, I would say, there, allowing those two runs for Peterson. But for me, um, I it wasn't that dominant, having his full arsenal type of game for David Peterson. I thought his changeup was pretty flat. I also thought that maybe his feeling of the changeup wasn't great. I saw he missed some on the arm side on the changeup. Maybe his mechanics were a little bit off when he threw that pitch. Maybe his arm fell a little bit behind, but he threw it not as much as we used to by David Peterson. I thought we saw a little bit more of the slider in Saturday's game, um, which was a good pitch, but wasn't the slider we saw in his first game where he had that great back foot slider. So he didn't have the best command of his slider and changeup, but then still no walks. I mean, that's pretty neat. But I think the most success the Peterson had was on that fastball, that four seamer and sinker in this outing. And I thought his secondary pitches were a little bit lacking.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Though definitely I would agree with the changeup was not at his best. Maybe a little bit more slider usage in this outing. But you know, definitely take that outing from David Peterson from his line. And like you talked about, it shows how good of a pitcher he is when you don't have your best stuff and you're able to go out there and still give your team a chance to win. I mean, I guess maybe other than Senga, I would say Peterson's been the Mets' best pitcher this year. Maybe you can make an argument for McGill. Uh, his first two outings of the season were very, very good. But I mean, overall, with where the Mets, where people maybe thought the Mets rotation was going to be at coming into the season, you have to be thrilled with what they've been able to produce so far through these first 15 games.
It's time to trust David Stearns.
It's crazy, right?
We said
It's
we
crazy.
said that all off season. Yes, I had my question marks with, for example, Griffin Canning, but even when I had my question marks about Griffin Canning, I think I said in that podcast after we signed him, it's David Stearns, it's the Mets. We saw last year, we got pitchers which mostly most fans didn't like and got good seasons out of almost all of them. Maybe not about with Hauser, but the rest we got good seasons out of all those guys. And they do it again. And it's not that Stearns did it not do it in Milwaukee. I think Wade Miley is probably the prime example there, who was a mediocre overall pitcher, never got a big deal. But when he was with Milwaukee, pitched pretty darn good, really, really good. And the Mets have figured out David Peterson. David Peterson figures himself out, obviously. Multiple people. Has figured it out. And it's not luck. It's definitely something the Mets are doing really well. Now it's time for the hitting, though. It's still lacking the hitting. We have a lot of talented hitters. And although I'm definitely not concerned because I do like the approach, and I think runners in scoring position numbers are a little bit overblown at times, especially this early in the season. And for example, yesterday we saw a couple of hard hit balls with runners on. I think Nemo had a good at bat the other way that was right at Urshela. I think Soto had a good at bat, which was right to Jacob Wilson. So runners in scoring position numbers will even out, and the pitching right now has been carrying us. Not just the starting pitching, also the bullpen. So it's to me, it's no luck. It's definitely the Mets know what they're doing there.
Yeah, it's crazy how, David Stearns has his track record and people still don't believe in him. But whatever. I guess it's hard to change people's minds sometimes. Before we get to the minor leagues, I think we just have to touch quickly on it. We talked a little bit about last time with Edwin Diaz and not a great outing against the Marlins, but obviously the circumstances were different. He came in Friday against the A's and had some uh, got dicey at times with him there. So we'll just touch on it quickly. Level of concern with Edwin Diaz: high, medium, low, or non-existent.
Low. I wouldn't say non-existent. I think yes, there are a couple of outings where he struggled now, but it's not uncommon for Edwin Diaz to go through this type of stretch. We saw it last year where he had a month where he didn't have it. I think it's a mechanical issue. If he's just not as smooth right now, we see a lot of misses and bad misses right now. So I think he's working on mechanical issues. He hit 98 um, in that save. He eventually got in Oakland. So I think it's not an injury related thing. I think it's him working around some mechanical issues. Um, and it's Edwin Diaz. So we have seen Edwin go through those periods of times where his mechanics or his control or command is a little bit off. But just like last year, eventually he worked it out and he was big for us down the stretch and in the playoffs. Uh, so low.
I would agree. I think it's low. I think you have to have a little, some level of concern. Um, and you could be right about it, being mechanical. I've always said he seems like a guy who's always rushing when he has time. And I know the pitch clock, maybe it's a little different thing, but still, I think like he's a guy like he wants to get it and he just wants to throw it, which that's his thing. But I think sometimes he's rushing himself and that might mess up his mechanics. At least that I mean, I'm not Jeremy Hefner, I'm not in this pitching lab. I'm just some guy who watches the Mets like a lunatic. Um, but it always seems like to me he's a guy who rushes, and I think that might mess with his mechanics. Whether I'm right or not, I don't know. Uh, but that's my thing, and I do agree that he's going to work his way out of this. He's too good not to find his way out of it. And I know that across town the Yankees are doing the same thing with Devin Williams. Devin Williams is not off to a good start. Also, remember when the Mets fans wanted David Stearns to trade for Devin Williams. Um, uh, but I think Diaz is going to be fine. Maybe this is just his May of 2024. Maybe it's happening right now where he's just a little off and he's still trying to work through things and then eventually gets into a groove and he's a very effective reliever for the Mets once again.
One difference though with May last year, he's 3 for 3 is save opportunities. I mean, I don't care about that one outing where the Mets lost 5-0, where he allowed 3 runs. I don't care about that one. Eventually, I didn't really care about this one because he got the job done in the end. That's for me. That's most important for a closer. So if his bad outings are outings that didn't hurt us, perfect. Because we know bad outings are going to be there. It's going to be there for everybody. So if this is the case and he figures himself out, and he doesn't blow a lot of saves, I'm all for it. And by the way, to say about Devin Williams, he's gonna be fine too. One different.
Yeah.
It's 1 year. He's last year, right? Or is he
Yeah,
under control for
no,
long?
I think he's a free agent after the year.
That puts some pressure on him. So maybe that works a little bit against him, but it's 15 games. So if there are Yankee fans listening, don't be concerned about Devin Williams.
Well, I hope that for the sake of the Mets, I hope Devin Williams does continue to struggle. Just so at least when the Yankees
I
play the Mets anyway.
exactly. I don't care that much about the Yankees. Honestly.
Yes, we're not gonna know how some Yankee fans are obsessed with what the Mets are doing. We're not going to be obsessive Met fans with how the
Oh,
Yankees
and there are
operate.
Mets fans
Uh,
obsessed by the Yankees. It
mm-hmm.
works
Oh yeah,
both ways.
I know.
I don't. Just I don't. I'm also not in New York, so maybe that helps. But the Yankees are one of the least concerning teams for the Mets. And I mean, we have the division and we have the National League where you can be concerned because the National League are pretty darn tough. We are fourth in the National League
Yeah,
in a winning percentage, and we would be first in the American League. So that's going to be tough.
yeah. My mind is more consumed with the Braves and the Phillies rather than the New York Yankees.
Dodgers, Padres,
Rays.
Giants.
Yeah, how about the Giants? I was I didn't see that coming. No way, Jose.
It's still early. It's
Yeah.
still early. Let, let's pump the brakes, everybody, on those kind of early, early great stretches.
Well, like you said, it's still early in the New York Mets season. It's also still very early in the minor league baseball season. So, good time to transition from the majors to the minors. And we'll hand it over to Corne to update us on what happened over the weekend in the Mets minor league system.
Well, a lot because we also have Thursday because we did our last episode on Thursday, so it's going to be a long one, everybody. Syracuse Thursday, the Syracuse Mets lost after an uneven start by Justin Hengerman. He went 2 and 2/3 innings, allowing 4 runs, just one earned. The bullpen was solid to keep it close with scoreless outings from Anthony Gose and Tyler Zuber, who were off to good starts, but the offense couldn't provide much in a 5-1 loss. Saturday, Brandon Sproat made his third start and arguably his best so far. The Mets' top prospect went 4 1/3 innings of 1 run balls, striking out 6, and a 6-2 win. Joey Meneses stayed hot, going 3 for 4 with 3 runs batted in. Meneses already hit his 11th double of the year. Donovan Walton and Nico Goodrum went deep in the win. Sunday, a doubleheader resulted in a split in the first game. Syracuse was shut out, collecting just 2 hits. Jose Urania got the loss, besides pitching 3 1/3 innings of 1 run ball. In game two, it was the other way around as Syracuse shut out the opposition. Brandon Waddell pitched well over 5 1-hit innings. He lowered his ERA to 1.35 after 3 starts. Tyler Zuber pitched 1 1/3 scoreless inning and scoreless and got a big out to keep Anthony Ghost scoreless streak intact. Zuber now has a 1.59 ERA. On the offense, Joey Meneses stayed hot with a 3 for 4, 2 RBI day. John Singleton and Jose Azagar collected 2 hits in a 7-0 win. The Syracuse Mets record is now 5-9. Binghamton Friday, Binghamton played a doubleheader on Friday and split the twin bill. In game one, my man Jack Weniger pitched well. Weniger went 5 innings of 1 run balls, striking out 9. The 23-year-old righty now has an 0.90 ERA over 10 innings with 16 strikeouts over his first 2 starts. It was more than enough for the offense, who got 2 3-run homers, one from Rowdy Jordan and one from Jed Williams. Jed Williams went 2 for 4. Nick Morabito drove in 2 in a 2 for 4 day. Kevin Parada and Travis Swaggerty also had 2 hits in a 10-1 win. In game two, the Rumble Ponies had a lead, but your boy, Trey McLaughlin, and my boy, Daniel Urias, combined to allow 8 runs in the 7th and final inning in the doubleheader to blow a 4-0 lead. It came after Felipe de la Cruz got the start, and he went 3 1/3 scoreless, striking out 6. He now has 6 1/3 scoreless innings with 9 strikeouts so far for the lefty. Douglas Orellana also pitched well with 2 2/3 scoreless, striking out 5. Nick LaRusso hit a home run and drove in 3 in the 8-4 loss. And on Sunday, Nolan McLean pitched well over 5 innings of 1 run ball, striking out 6. He has allowed just 1 earned over 9 innings with a staggering 14 strikeouts. Yoander Suarez came in relief for his season debut and got a 4-inning save, striking out 6 in a 2-1 win. Wyatt Young homered and drove in the only 2 runs. Binghamton Rumble Ponies record is now 3-4. Brooklyn, Thursday, Noah Hall was tremendous in his start with 4 1/3 strong innings. He allowed just 1 hit and 1 unearned run and 2 walks while striking out 8. The Cyclones bullpen, however, struggled. Austin Trozer allowed 4 runs, getting just 2 outs in an 8-3 loss. Starling Mercado went 3 for 4 in the loss. Saturday, after a rainout on Friday, the Cyclones played 2 on Saturday. In game 1, the offense got shut out. Jacob Reimer went 2 for 4 with a double and a 2-0 loss. Joel Diaz pitched well with 4 shutout innings, striking out 5. He has been unscored upon over 8 innings so far. Game 2, another good pitching performance as lefty Zach Thornton pitched well. He went 5 scoreless innings with 6 strikeouts. Like Joel Diaz, Thornton is also unscored upon this season. Thornton has pitched 10 innings with 14 strikeouts and an 0.60 whip so far. It was just enough for the offense as Nick Rosselli drove in the only 2 runs in a 2-1 win. Sunday, a nice 8-1 win to end Cyclones homestand. Christopher Suero hit his third home run of the year. Ronald Hernandez and DeAndre Smith drove in three. Carson Bench and Jacob Reimer went 2 for 4 with 2 runs scored. It was more than enough for RJ Gordon and the Cyclones bullpen. The Cyclones improved to 6-3 after that Sunday win. And lastly, the St. Lucie Mets Thursday got a first look at Nate Dahl. The 2024 third round pick made his second career start, not overpowering, but mixing his pitches very nicely. Had a good slider, a good curve, and tried to pitch a little bit backwards. Griffin Canning alike. Went inside with the fastball where he needed as well. He sits around 91 and 93 with his fastball with an occasional 94. He allowed 2 runs over 3 innings, striking out 4. Irvin Kota came in relief, showcasing his nasty stuff, sinking fastball, slider, curve, and change as well, with solid command. He went 4 scoreless with 3 strikeouts. On the defense, Simon Wan robbed a home run with a tremendous catch in left field. Unfortunately, the St. Lucie Mets allowed 5 runs in the 8th to give away a comfortable lead. On the offensive side, Drew Gilbert, who was on a rehab assignment, went 2 for 4 with a home run, double, and walk. Diverson Gutierrez went 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs, and Marco Vargas went 2 for 4 with a double. A lot of good things in that Thursday game, but still a loss for St. Lucie. Friday, Ethan Lantier allowed just 1 run over 2 1/3 innings of work in the second start in a St. Lucie win. Eli Ankeny, who I got my first look at, struck out the side in the fourth, showing nasty changeup. Ankeny had solid success in the Mets organization since being drafted. He has a 2.96 ERA with a 12 K per 9 rate over 45 and 2/3 pro innings. Ankeny was followed by Frank Ellisalt, who showed a good fastball. Ellisalt also struck out the side for 6 straight strikeouts in the fourth and the fifth inning for St. Lucie Mets pitching staff. Ellisalt ended up with 5 strikeouts in 2 1/3 innings of 1 run ball. In the top of the ninth, Jesus Baez went first to third on a ground ball to third, and A.J. Ewing brought home the go-ahead run. Drew Gilbert homered again, a 3-1 homer that scored McNeil and Alvarez in the win. Saturday, Matt Allen made his second start and pitched well over 3 1/3 scoreless. He didn't walk anybody and struck out 3. It helped St. Lucie to an easy 10-3 win. Marco Vargas went 2 for 4 with a double. A.J. Ewing kept hitting with a 3 for 5 home run and 3 RBI day. And Diverson Gutierrez went 2 for 4 with an RBI in the win. And on Sunday, Drew Gilbert stayed hot with a 2 for 4 day. With a double, he drove in the only St. Lucie run in the 2-1 loss. Jesus Baez also went 2 for 4. They wasted a better outing from Edgar Moredo, who allowed 2 runs, 1/3 over 3 innings of work without issuing a walk and 5 strikeouts. The bullpen kept it at 2 runs, but the offense couldn't come back. St. Lucie now has a 4-5 record on the season. You probably noticed that I watched the Thursday and Friday game because I had a little bit more information on St. Lucie there, so it was fun to watch.
Well, there you go. You are now officially updated on what's happened in the Mets minor league system over the last couple of days. And I watched a little bit of the Binghamton game yesterday, just a couple innings with Nolan McLean on the mound. And that was fun to watch. And Wyatt Young in the home run. So that was fun to see. Fun to see. Watch the ponies. So let's go back to the major league level because the Mets are in Minnesota next 3 days to take on the Twins. It all starts tonight at 7:40. First pitch, Eastern time. It's going to be Clay Holmes taking him out for the Mets, fresh off his 10 strikeout performance. He'll be going up against Joe Ryan for the Twins. Tuesday, also a 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time first pitch. It's going to be Tyler McGill going up against Bailey Ober. And a Wednesday getaway, 1:10 p.m. first pitch Eastern Time. Griffin Canning for the Mets going up against David Festa for the Minnesota Twins. So that is how the next 3 days are going to be looking for the orange and blue. So who is going to go from the warm Sacramento weather to the chilly Minnesota weather and still perform at a high level? It's time to put a name to the claim. It is our Players of the Series predictions. We are a pitching podcast, so this week I get the pitcher, which means I get to go first. And like what you did last week, I'm also going to go with a bullpen guy. This guy has been one of the highlights of this Mets bullpen so far. Can give him multiple innings. I'm going to go with the Mets fan and now Mets reliever Max Kranick to give the Mets some solid innings against the Minnesota Twins over the next couple of days.
Well, good. Good pick. I would say that when I pick a player so far this year, they don't necessarily have good series. So sorry for whoever I pick now, but because maybe it doesn't really work because there's a kind of like a curse when Corne picks the player. He's not having a good series so far. So sorry, Luis Angel Acuna, but I'm going with you. I think we saw some good at bats from Luis Angel in the last series. And I have to go with a guy who has been struggling because we also do this a little bit to give, some players who aren't necessarily. We don't want to pick the easy ones. We don't want to pick the red hot ones, like Pete Alonso, who is red hot, or Brandon Nimmo, who had a great series. We mostly pick a guy who maybe needs it a little bit on the offensive side. So Luis Angel Cunha would be nice if he has a good series for him and for the Mets moving forward.
I like the pick, and I have to apologize to Luis Angel Acuna, who is now officially going to be demoted to AAA Syracuse once the series is
Yeah,
over and Jeff McNeil comes back. And so I guess Corne has officially cemented who will be heading back to
sorry,
Syracuse.
sorry, Luis Angel. It's not nothing personal though.
No, but I like the pick. I do agree. I like some of his at bats he's put together this season for a guy who traditionally didn't have a higher walk rate in the minor leagues. I think he's put together some long at bats and has had a couple walks. Particularly, you think of opening day against Josh Hader. So yeah, I like the Acuna pick. Hopefully, he uh, has a good series against the Minnesota Twins, and the Mets can keep this streak of winning series going. The Mets have not lost back-to-back games this year. I saw that pop up on the broadcast as well. So as I lean over to knock on some wood, the Mets keep that going and they have another successful series against the Twins and finish this road trip on a high note before they come back and play the St. Louis Cardinals for a four-game series. So I think we're going to wrap things up here on episode number 67 of the Queen's Connection. A little bit of a longer one than we've had this season, but there was a lot to talk about. So thanks for sticking with us. And also, we have picked our winner for the ticket giveaway. So go to our social media. It's posted on Facebook and Twitter, X, Elon's website, whatever you want to call it. Just search the Queen's Connection. You'll see who the winner is. And also make sure to give us a like and a follow while you're there as well. So, Corne, thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for hanging out with us. And hopefully, good next couple of days for the New York Mets.
Yeah, let's win another series.
Let's win another series. All right. This has been the Queen's Connection. You already know to go to social media and follow and like us there. Also, do the same wherever you're listening to this episode, Spotify or YouTube. Like, subscribe, and make sure to leave us a nice review. So, thanks for listening and enjoy these next couple of days as the Mets take on the Minnesota Twins.